Ladies and gentlemen, good day for the markets as we see signs and data reports of inflation that is continuing to cool, which has been bullish for the global macroeconomic environment and has been great for Palantir specifically as we see another green day and Palantir closing at one of the most critical points of resistance that we've seen in the previous trading sessions, and that's right at $20. We have a lot to talk about, and especially this article that comes out asking, can Palantir possibly become as big as Microsoft within the next decade? So stick around. If you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, hit that like button and subscribe for daily videos. I can't thank you guys enough for watching. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just collecting the data and dispatching it to you. Let's quickly talk about the charts here before we get into the media and before we get into the inflation data that we do have. With Palantir, you can see that we've had this resistance and this broke out last week with Palantir being able to hit a new 52-week year-to-date high at this 2185. We have this little bit of a retracement for Palantir, finding support at the 19s, a reversal being triggered, and we see Palantir closing and basically sitting right at this $20 level of resistance. This is critically important because this is a key level of resistance, not just from a trading pattern perspective, but also from a psychological perspective, just going into the next increment between 20 and 30. In terms of trading volume, it's actually down by where its averages are typically for Palantir, which is around 50 million. And this is actually kind of great to see that we're still finishing in the green with a little bit of a decrease here in trading volume compared to what we've seen at these breakouts. I'm talking here in the 80 to the 90 to even 100 million. Now, quickly looking at the contracts right here, what we do have in terms of expirations for tomorrow is a lot of call option volatility for that $20.50 and the $21 strike price here, 14,000 and 18,000 respectively. And we're seeing those calls that are continuing into next week that are still outbeating the amount of put volume. So still the majority of options traders are taking a bet on Palantir increasing its valuation in the future. This could be due part to some of the information that we do have in terms of the global macroeconomic perspective right here. And you have the Dow Jones up over 1.5% on the day, basically adding over 500 points as we're seeing this November come to a close. And what we do have is inflation that is continuing to decrease, and we're seeing that the Fed's preferred inflation gauge shows further signs of inflation cooling in October. This is great because this could signal to basically be done with hiking interest rates and hopefully keeping them at their continued rate, which is coming in line right here. And this is showing that inflation has cooled to its lowest level since 2021. So could this November rally turn into this December rally, basically with a notion that the Fed is done with hiking this cycle and may cut rates sooner than we thought? This is bullish for the whole market, which does have a positive impact on Palantir. Now, what you guys came for here, an article by the Motley Fool that releases, could Palantir become the next Microsoft? I wanted to break this down and really give a realistic approach to what this means. And typically with Palantir, one thing that's important, especially if you're newer into the stock, is that Palantir is not a new company. This company is actually about 20 years old. Why you may be thinking that it's newer is because its IPO was only about 3 years ago. And we saw Palantir open at about $10, shoot up to $39, and then retrace. And basically what we're sitting at here in the 19s and the 20s, Palantir is still actually nearly 50% down from its all-time highs. And with that being said, what we are seeing with Palantir is actually its growth slowing down, and this is either seen, you can argue, as a bullish or a bearish perspective. In terms of a bullish perspective, slowing down does signal maturity within a company, and that's important as Palantir continues to grow into a larger market cap stock every single year. However, in terms of the bearish perspective, of course, they're saying, hey, the revenue is slowing down. They're not growing as fast as they once were. Now, what we do have with Palantir, talking about its challenges and what we could see in terms of the reversal, is this boom in the AI industry, and specifically talking about with the AIP bootcamp, which was a large accelerator and a catalyst to the exponential destroying of the last quarter earning predictions. And with that being said, talking about its GAAP profitability, we all know that they've had the 4 quarters GAAP profitability now, which does bring possible inclusion and fits the criteria for the S&P 500. Nonetheless, talking about that, The question, can Palantir evolve into a mega cap company like Microsoft? Now, it's a big question. Of course, there's going to be many different variables that happen with the next decade. But if these right here in this research, whoever these research people would do, basically they said that if they expect an annual compounded growth rate of 19%, basically for the next decade here from 2023 to 2032, and if Palantir keeps pace with the market in terms of its annual revenue of $2.2 billion in 2023 to $10.5 billion in 2032. So this is just basically expanding a consistent annual growth rate. And if Palantir is still trading at 20 times its sales by then, which could be easily actually achievable, because Palantir has always traded at a high premium and is trading at a very high premium right now and compared to its sales, this could cross a 200 billion threshold for becoming a mega cap company. We kind of have these different market cap levels and incremental levels in terms of the different types of status that we set these stocks. But this would still be much smaller than Microsoft, talking about that comparing over the next decade, which currently has a market cap of 2.8 trillion. So Palantir would have to experience some significant growth to really throttle it and hit this exponential growth phase in terms of revenue, and with the hype that's already behind Palantir, keeping it trading at over its normal sales ratio. So talking about that, there's going to be many variables, but over the next decade, at the current compounded annual growth rate of 19%, Palantir would not be anywhere close to the market cap of Microsoft. And that's what we do come in and talk about Palantir, especially with a long-term growth perspective and looking at its market cap right now in comparison to some of these top blue chip stocks. Palantir right now has a market cap of only 43 billion. If you do compare that to some of these top chip stocks, even with trillion-dollar market caps. So talking about that, if you can only buy one tech stock in here in December, it better be one of these three names. This article comes from Investor Place, and they have Palantir basically saying it as it's continuing to rack up and diversify its clienteles. This is one of the main sources and one of the main points of arguments that it's utilizing in terms of a top AI stock for the month of December. And if we have inflation rates that are continuing to cool, we could see Palantir holding above this $20 level of resistance and starting to establish support in zones that we have not seen before or in a very long time. We're talking years. Remember that Palantir over this last year has continued to establish very significant contracts with different clients and of course different industries. Number one, everybody's always talked about this, but that $250 million US Army contract, let's not forget about that, and really the reliance that they've had with government contracts as a majority revenue maker. In addition, what we see is diversification now across different industries, and a great example is this $450 million contract regarding the National Health Services with the UK. And what we see is Palantir is racking up all these different types of clients, especially after having all these calls and trials with their AIP bootcamp. And this what can lead to Kathy Wood's three top artificial stocks. You know her ARC innovation company right here. She claims this is a bet on the future of AI. And looking at that, basically her top three AI stocks that she considers within her fund, Palantir is included right here as a fast and growing profitable stock. Talking about here that there are 9.42 million shares worth about 186 million of Palantir alone represented in ARC holdings. Now this is the smallest slice of the three stocks that are mentioned on this article, but we could see an increase in the actual percentage of Palantir as they start to continue to grow. And talking about that shares of Palantir have more than tripled so far in 2023. And this, of course, has been an acceleration or catalyst due to that fourth quarter of achieving outsized revenue growth. So lots of interesting things for Palantir right now. And if you take all that information that we really just talked about and you zoom out and compare it to some of the top blue chip stocks, if we're going to directly or correlate or kind of compare Palantir as to these top blue chip stocks, though that may be unrealistic at this time, but it's taking those market caps into perspective. And if you're in for a long-term growth strategy, then hey, Palantir, you could still be very early. However, there could be large fluctuations in Palantir's price, and this is because of its decelerating revenue growth. That's a big criticism. That is in tune with its increasing valuation. You're seeing revenue growth come here, and you're seeing this valuation that comes high. Palantir must be able to increase its revenue and really put the throttle down and able to achieve or to trade with that high valuation. But at the end of the day, people are going to pay what they are willing to pay for Palantir. And with that high valuation, you're seeing many people that are taking a bullish bet on its future. I don't think anybody can disagree right there in terms of the price that it is trading at compared to its sales. That's just statistics, and that's what we have on the board. So in terms of their financials, things are looking great. We'll keep you guys updated. That's Palantir for the day. Peace out.